Like the last house I did that I just lost my ass had a septic tank, like septic went bad. I added too many baths. Like you don't know what's going to happen.
So you said you lost your behind on this property.
I lost the whole ass. Everything.
So
And
tell me about it.
the whole man is gone.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Dre and Smiley, the Inner Circle podcast.
So Smiley, man, we have those guests that we've had in the past that kind of blow our minds, right? What really blows my mind is when they come back. So to kick things off here, yeah, we got Sabrina Maples is back on the podcast, people. She's back on the podcast. So for those that didn't listen to the prior episode, which is episode 149 of the Dre and Smiley podcast, go ahead and check that out. For those new listeners, we have Sabrina Maples, who is a savant of real estate, as I would describe her. Sabrina, talk to us about what you're up to now, who you are. Tell us about yourself, Sabrina.
So I am in real estate. That is correct. I flip houses, I wholesale, I buy rentals. I'm a realtor in Arizona as well as Washington. I've been doing this I've been an agent for 6 years and investing this will be now my 5th year. I have one rental in Alabama. There's a big giant story behind all of that. And I am a single mom to a little 5-year-old boy. His name's Logan.
Logan, yeah. And I've seen the few posts of Logan. He's a handsome 5-year-old boy. He's adorable little boy. So tell me about this, Sabrina. So, getting into real estate, we've had a number of real estate investors, people who have done various things in real estate, and there's always an interesting story about how they get into real estate. Oftentimes, it's not, I woke up at 16 years old and decided my career path was going to be real estate. Often that's not the case.
Right.
So talk to me about how you got into real estate. What was the story that led up to that?
So I come from broken family like most, and I wanted something more for my life. My mom was also a single mom, and by the time it was time to go to college and do all those things, she couldn't do any of that for me. There was no support there. She couldn't. So in those moments, I decided to work a bunch of jobs. I worked 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job all at the same time to basically get myself through college. Once I got through college, I started working in that career, which I was a medical coder. And I found out rather quickly that I didn't like it. Maybe 2-3 years, I was like, this shit sucks. So on top of that, not only did that happen, but I also got injured. I got really bad tinnitus in my shoulder, down my elbow. I could barely use my right hand. I actually use a mouse with my left hand now because of that injury and having to train myself to use my left so I could still work. So in that moment, I decided I don't want to do this shit no more. I'm going to try every entrepreneurial path known to man. Any video, get rich quick schemes. I did all of that. I did drop shipping. I had a Shopify store. I did Amazon FBA. I was a Twitch streamer. I did YouTube travel vlogs. I also did blogging. I did Pinterest. I did affiliate marketing. I did, what is it called when you go to the store and you buy stuff and then you resell it?
Secret shoppers.
Or arbitrage, retail arbitrage.
Oh, arbitrage.
I would go, not eBay. I would go to TJ Maxx, all them stores. I would go to the clearance section. I would scan them. I would try to stick it on Amazon. If you ever did that, if the shit's not selling at the store, it's not going to sell on Amazon. And then slowly after that, I was like, in between doing all this, I had bought my first house. And I just bought my first house because I was married. And that's the next step, right? Buy the house. And we decided to move to Arizona. And in that moment, we ended up selling that house in California and we made $110,000 in 2.5 years of living there. And I was like, oh, we could do this every 2 years and we would be making 100 and something thousand, which was more than both of our salaries at the time. And all we have to do is rinse and repeat, buy kind of a fixer house, live in it, fix it while we're there, and then sell it. And that kind of led me to becoming a realtor, because at that time I thought realtors knew everything. They were the end all be all. I was going to learn all the ins and outs of real estate. You don't learn anything as a realtor, to be quite honest. Um, so I went to real estate school. In real estate school, I joined a brokerage. That brokerage led me to my friend Jane, who was like, "Oh, have you heard of Bigger Pockets?" And then I was like, "Oh, no, let me dive deep in there." Listen to all the podcasts. They were on YouTube. That was still the season of Brandon and David. Um, and then that's how I bought my first rental in Alabama. Then in moving to Arizona, we also bought another fixer that we sold again 2.5 years. But on that one, we made $220,000 when we sold that one.
Wow.
So truly, the thing that inspired me to start real estate was buying my first house. That's what opened all the doors. That's what made me realize that there was even opportunity or something to do in there. So that's oh, I also had a son in there. Logan was born in there, like all those other things. But that's really what it stemmed from. Is I got hurt really bad at work, and I was like, F this. I want my time back. I don't want to be hurt anymore. I can control this. Let me try every avenue known to man. And that's what I did.
Knowing what you know now, because you say you're 7, 8 years into the real estate, and I say success, if you ever see a picture, it's like a jagged line. There's no straight lines. But knowing who you are and knowing what you've experienced, what would you say to yourself at year 1? And then what would you say to yourself at year 3, now that you're 8 years in?
Year one, so there's two, I guess, avenues. Year one, as an agent, I would say don't rely on your brokerage to do anything for you. Every brokerage that I went to, I signed up and they had this whole kit and caboodle show. I learned nothing in any of those brokerages. You have to learn how to prospect, how to do the open houses, how to talk to people is usually all outside of the brokerage. And all of that information I learned more from investing than I ever did in a brokerage. As far as investing, wholesaling, running the business, hiring VAs, all that kind of stuff, if I knew what I knew now in year one, I would have gone like this and been like, do your prospecting consistently. You will not get consistent leads if you don't do that shit every day. Granted, I was doing that while I was working a 9 to 5 and a mom, but I would have these weeks of I'm doing it. I'm cold calling 2-3 times a day. I'm door knocking on Saturdays. I'm holding open houses on Sundays, like full ramp. And then I would stop for like a couple weeks and then happen again and then ramp. And when you do that in your business, your leads flow exactly the same and it makes inconsistency in the business. So if I could just go back to her and say, the consistent action more than anything is what's going to keep you growing steadily like this instead of doing this motion the entire time.
Then year 3?
Year 3, probably the same thing. That and there are so many people that don't make it to year 3. They lose something in the beginning of real estate. They lose on a property. They lose on a deal. They can't handle all the rejection of the prospecting. They put all their money in one mail campaign and fail. And then they are like, real estate sucks. It doesn't work. I'm out. And it's not true. If you can continue moving forward and continue on the path of this basic, ugly, cold calling, door knocking, mailers. I've had friends who tried the AI texting and bots and got in trouble by the attorney general. Like all of the fancy, shiny prospecting things, you don't need it. You just need a phone and your voice and a little script. You will make it leaps and bounds as long as you stay consistent in all of those things.
Was it a big transition going from being an employee, having all these jobs, and now you're a business owner? Was that an easy psychological switch?
I would say no. I knew what I had to do, but because I no longer had anybody to answer to, that's where the inconsistency comes from, right? And when you're going from employee, you know, when you're sitting there for 8 hours that you're going to get paid at the end of the 8 hours versus when you're an entrepreneur, there's 10, 12-hour days, there's open houses, there's prospecting, there's door knocking, there's contracts that you set up that fall through. There's so much work that you put into it that you never are really you never really know if there's a paycheck guaranteed at the end. So that's kind of, it was a big mindset shift. And I'm still learning to this day. I officially left my 9 to 5. It's almost 2 years now. And even till this day, I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then I have to be like, that's the only way I'm going to get the things I need to get done. I have to do it. Yeah.
Did you find that transition from employee to entrepreneurial business owner? Was that because you mentioned bigger pockets, but was there a Rich Dad, Poor Dad Kiyosaki you followed, or in my era it was Carlton Sheets? Was there some sort of real estate guru that said, you know what, you were successful with your first home, but you need to try this multi-state. You're in 3 states now.
Bigger pockets is what led me to Thatch Win. So he's with Springboard to
Thatch
Wealth. And Thatch
Mhm.
is the one that taught me how to wholesale, taught me how to flip, taught me how to have correct standards, taught me how to talk to sellers, taught me how to be in the correct mindset. He harps a lot on mindset. He is the one. So watching all of the Bigger Pockets podcasts led me to his podcast. And he comes from nothing, bunch of siblings, and came here from Vietnam and has hundreds of $1 million in real estate. And I'm like, that's my guy. That's the guy that's going to teach me. And even when I initially joined with him, it took me 9 months to get my first flip that I did. Well, through the prospecting, through the door knocking, through messing up appointments, through walking houses that I shouldn't have, like all kinds of things I did wrong in that time. But he's the reason where the wholesaling, the flipping, and that whole gate of investing came from.
Wow, it's great. I can see the importance of having a mentor, right? Because no matter what area you're in, career path, area of entrepreneurship, there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be challenges. Where does your drive come from? I can tell that you have a passion for this, but where does the drive, where does the motivation come from for you to get up every day in spite of the obstacles and keep pushing forward to achieve success?
My son, and also myself. Like when I was little, I grew up with a lot of nothing. There's things that I experienced that I never want him to experience. And the only way he's not going to experience those things if I do different, right? Like my mom was a single mom, but she wasn't, she was more of like, life is what it is. And really was not a go-getter kind of thing. So it was like, yeah, it was rough. And I just don't want my son to live that life. I never did. And that's why I got married at 23, but I didn't have him until 29. And my mentality during that time was like, I want to set up this financial freedom for him. I don't want to have to put him in daycare from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I don't want to have to be working night jobs and never see him. Like, I don't want him to have a mother like that. So I'm going to try every avenue known to man to try to get this extra money so then I can actually stay at home with him. So I can be with him. So I don't have to pay for a babysitter. So I don't have to watch him cry when I drop him off somewhere. Like, that really was the driving force. Even before I had him, I was like, I want this life for my child, and I will wait to get it done. Granted, by the time I turned 29 and I had failed all those other things and I still hadn't figured it out, I was like, the time's clicking, like, the time's going now. Like, I'm about to be 30. Like, maybe it's time that I should just, kind of throw this entrepreneur stuff out the door. But even then I got pregnant with him, and that's when I was in real estate school. So the flame only grew immensely once he was here now. Like, now I don't have time to play around. And then you get divorced, and then it's really fucking game time. Like, now it's really time to show up, and I'm the one that's got to do it for him. So I would say him. Even the thought of just child, period. Like, I didn't want my child to live the life I did. So that is just truly what it is.
Yeah, I love that, Sabrina, because it resonates with me in terms of, well, one, that your son being your drive, your motivation makes perfect sense. Something else that resonates with me is, how you didn't make any excuses, in terms of your upbringing. You just mentioned that your mom saw it one way, and as an adult with a child, you're seeing it a different way. And I was telling my son that the way I look at it is, you know, success. It took me a long time to come up with this. And tell me what you think about this. For me, being a successful parent is knowing that my son's going to be a better man than I am. And then he goes on to have kids, they'll be better than him, and so on. Is that fair to say? Is
Yes.
that accurate? Yeah.
I would say, like, even for Logan's sake, if he, let's say he wants to be like a chef or like a, I don't know, Twitch streamer or whatever he wants to do in his life, he will have this added skill of real estate behind him because I taught him. Like, and he
Yeah.
watches me go in the properties. He watches me do all that stuff. He's going to go to college and have his college paid for because of the real estate I did. So he will inherently be better than me. He's going to have opportunities I didn't have. And if I can set them up for him, that's what I'm going to do. And I feel exactly the same way as you do. He's going to be better. His kids are going to be better. It's all, the line will be better.
Yeah. I was telling my son that, another part of success in my mind is if I can avoid him from making the same mistakes I made, I'm good. He's going to make his own mistakes. He's human. He's going to make his own mistakes.
Right.
But if I can set him up to be a better person, better man, and not make the same mistakes I did, we know. He and I, in terms of, seeing what success looks like, will be good. Smiley.
No, we're all parents, and I look at the same way. And when I go back to when I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, similar single mom, all that stuff, and we have hills. It's almost like Seattle. It looks like a East Coast Seattle with hills and the rivers. You got the Pacific, but either way, I when I go to Seattle, it makes me think of Pittsburgh. But I always used to stand on my hill and say, one day I want to go to California. I didn't have the world I didn't even consider anything outside of the U.S. Whereas with my daughter, I'm like, you got this whole planet. You got the whole world. Look at Asia. Look at Australia. Look at Africa. Look at everywhere. Look at the Polynesian Islands. Just consider the world as your opportunity versus I was looking at, okay, if I could get to Ohio or maybe make it to California, not realizing the U.S. is only 5% of the planet. And by the time she's only 17, a couple years older than your son, but by the time they're older and have kids, they'll probably be flying to Mars for a weekend, with all that stuff.
I bet.
It's like don't look at just one place, but I just think it's so awesome when parents just say, you know what, no one's talking about how they were raised. They're just saying we're going to make it so our situation is different for the young ones we bring in, and that's it. So
That's key. That's key. So shifting back to real estate for a minute. So Alabama. Talk to me about the property you have down there. It seems so random, but I know it's not. Tell me about how that came about.
So I was on the Bigger Pockets trek. This is before I joined Thatch's group, and I would listen to David Green a lot. And David Green would invest out of state, so would Brandon Turner. And Brandon Turner had this video. I remember him saying that this house is going to be for my daughter, and I'm going to hold this house until she's in college. If she wants to keep it as a rental, she's going to keep it. If she wants to sell it and take it for her college fund, she can sell it. But I'm going to have one for my daughter and one for my son. And his was out because he was in Washington, but he was also investing out of state. So I ended up buying that David Green long-term or long-distance investing and just went through the chapters. I was like, he did it. He wrote this book. I'm going to follow the book. That's exactly what I did. I made the team with the real estate agent, the property manager, the handyman / contractor guy. I've never stepped foot in Alabama. I've never even been to that property. I've never touched the key of that property. And I did it from the book. And that's kind of how that happened. Specifically Alabama. My ex-husband is a Army vet, and he was stationed in that Alabama base. The Alabama base is one of the biggest Army bases on the country. So his thought process was this one base is never going to be decommissioned because it's the biggest training facility on the entire country. If we buy a house surrounding that military base, we're going to attract military people and specifically like sergeants, higher ups with families. and they're going to rent it. And on top of that, if you get a military person that rents your house, if they do anything wrong in that house, or if they destroy it or anything, you can go report to their commander and they get in trouble, and then the Army takes care of it. So not only will you have a military person and their family who's going to take care of the house, but if they ever like happen to mess around, you can have somebody to answer to that will ensure that your property gets taken care of. So it's kind of like a double layer. If we're going to try to invest out of state, well, let's get military type person in here, and if they ever mess up, that kind of ensures like an extra line of security. So that's why we picked there.
What's been how many years have you owned it?
4 going on 5 in August.
And what's been the biggest challenge? Because to me, owning a real estate out of state without, having a lot of experience in that, or any experience in that, it seems like there'd be a lot of obstacles, but maybe there aren't. What's been the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge we had was when we initially bought it, we had a clean inspection, but the inspector missed I guess the Freon out of the air conditioning or something was leaking. One of those HVAC, something like that. It was leaking, and basically we had to replace the entire unit. So that was like $4-ish grand, I want to say, out of pocket. We couldn't go look and check. Like we couldn't do, you're basically not, you can't control the situation as much when you're so far away. We were in Arizona and the house was in Alabama. So we couldn't go there and see. We couldn't get multiple quotes. We were kind of just like, we have a tenant in here already. It's the middle of summer and this thing is broken down. We need a new unit now. So that was probably the biggest hurdle. That same tenant was there for 3 years. He paid on time. He did perfect tenant. Never heard a word from him. The property manager is also very good. She would walk the property once a year. She would get the landscaping done on the property. One year there was like a fence board that had fallen off. We had that fixed. She would change the air filter things when she would walk through there. So it was very easy. The hardest part was when the original tenant left, getting a new tenant. When the new tenant, it took a long time to do that. So that was probably be the, I guess, most stress of that. And then also relieving the control. You can't control it as much. You have to rely on other people to be your boots on the ground to actually get things done. So those 2 things, I would say.
As a real estate expert, to bring it to current affairs, the tragedies that's going on in Los Angeles now with the fires and the hurricanes we encountered in Florida, natural disasters going on everywhere in the country. As a real estate professional, do you look at that opportunity, or do you look at Los Angeles? Once again, it's a tragedy, and I'm sending prayers to everyone out there.
It's too soon. It is too soon.
The reason why I asked that, I was listening to a TikTok, and he was just like, yesterday, he's just like, man, the property is going to be so cheap there now. And then there was another, it's been 4 months. I'm in Tampa, Florida, but a lot of the places here, we went through 2 hurricanes 1 week after, within 10 days, we had 2 major hurricanes. A lot of people in Clearwater along the coast, they're selling their properties for 60% off because the elderly people are like, we're done. We're not doing this again. They're just selling. So as a real estate professional in Seattle with property in multiple states, do you look at tragedies in other regions like, man, I can get some real cheap in Asheville, North Carolina? Or is that just not part of your strategy?
No. I had friends in Florida, which I must have forgot you were in Florida, but I was texting them like, get out of that house. The tornado's coming. All the shit's coming. Go. That's my first instinct. I have a bunch of friends in LA, so that's more of where my mind goes. I do not think about real estate first. Granted, when things settle, and especially in LA, because there's a bunch of insurance companies that removed the fire damage off of the insurance a couple of months ago, a lot of people are going to be up shit creek without a paddle. And that is extremely unfortunate. But no, I do not look at it right now as like, oh yeah, I'm going to go get some toasty properties. Like, no, I'm like, please be alive And please, insurance, stop fucking around. And then, like, if you need help, then I can help you. But I'm not gonna. I know I've seen videos too of people who are like, "Ooh, there's gonna be some houses, real estate to buy in LA." I'm like, you guys are so insensitive. Like, honestly, like, they're in the midst of flame. Like, give them a break, give them a week, like, give them something. And
let the embers cool off.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still actively firing. Like, let's not look at it yet. In Florida too, I have a couple of friends, and I forgot to mention I coach too. I have a couple coaching clients. One in Tampa. I forget where the other one is, but she's kind of near the coast, on the left side. I don't know directions. She's on this side of Florida. And she said that she was going to start looking at all of the damage. And then my other coaching client, he was sending me wholesales of people who are showing pictures of basically half of the like drywall down being ripped out because of all the water damage, and they're just out. Obviously, if it's a lot of elderly too, right, that's their second home. So that's not their primary residence, versus I think LA, a lot of those people, that's their house. Like, they never left that place, versus Florida, people will let it go easily because it's not, I think in most terms, it's not their main home. So Florida has been long enough where people are naturally looking to sell 60% rate and like, get me out of this shit, versus LA, like, no.
So tell me this, Sabrina. So this is my novice mind. Let's say that there's a flood or some tragedy in Boise, Idaho, right? Why would an investor? Well, let's use Florida because that's more realistic. Why would an investor go into an area that went through a hurricane, and let's say these homes are being sold, like Smiley said, 60% off? My thought is, if I go in there to invest in this property that just went through a hurricane, in fact, there were 2 within 10 days, that seems like a great amount of risk for me to buy this property, because there's a good chance another hurricane is coming at some point. So tell me about what's the rationale behind going into an area like that to invest when it's so risky? Or is that an area that you wouldn't even invest in?
I can't say that I wouldn't. I say I will always invest in something if the numbers work. So I'm more in number focus. So if you're getting properties 60% off, granted, you have to rehab, you got to replace all the drywall, the studs, like the electrical, all of it needs to be replaced. If the numbers work, the numbers work. You are rebuilding the home so then the people in that community can live there again. Most average homeowners don't have $100,000 just to pour back into a property to fix it and to stay there and live there. So I think any property, like even hurricane path or not, when you buy it, you're running a risk because you don't know what's going to happen when you take the drywall out. You don't know what's going to happen. Like the last house I did that I just lost my ass had a septic tank, like septic went bad. I added too many like, you don't know what's going to happen on any house in any scenario in any path of weather. Granted, if you buy in Florida and you know you're in the path of the hurricane, maybe get extra hurricane insurance or flood insurance or protect yourself that way. But if you have potential as far as numbers go and getting 50% off what you can do when you can actually sell it, like there's potential there.
I have one follow. I'm sorry. I have one more follow up. Sorry. So you said you lost your behind on this property. So tell me, this is good, right? Because some people are looking at real estate and they realize that, oh, she's crushing it. She's coaching, etc.
The whole ass. Everything.
So tell me about it.
The whole man is gone.
It was gone. So tell me about it. So walk me through how you found it. The bad, the bad decisions that were made, and how you, the end result. Tell me about that.
I think the last time I was on your guys' podcast, I was talking to you about a house hack I was working on that I just bought. I was so excited, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Since the last podcast, I'm no longer in Washington. I'm in Arizona. So life has happened. I moved back to Arizona because of family issues and things. And what I did was I converted that basement into a 2-bed, 1-bath livable space. It was a perfect house hack. So the entire process as far as rehabbing went well. My caveat, that was the first house I ever did septic on. And if you ever work on a septic house, these septic tanks are graded on bedrooms, not existing bathrooms. So because I added 2 bedrooms, even though I didn't touch anything in the bathrooms, I already had 2 bathrooms, the health department said that I would be creating way more waste water for what the septic tank was graded for. And they wanted me to replace the septic tank after I already had listed that house on the market. To replace the septic tank is between 50 and 60 grand. And just so you know, this house was the first house that I took a private money loan from my friend. The friend that told me about Bigger Pockets is the friend I borrowed money from to complete the basement. Granted, if everything had worked out well and I had taken care of that septic before, if I even had factored in the septic, I wouldn't have lost as much as I did. But I didn't. I just moved forward because I'm like, I'm going to live here for 18 years. I don't care. I'm going to have a renter down there. It's just me and my son up here. Nothing's going to happen to the septic. But because I had to move and I had to leave, like, that's kind of what happened in that house. So because I did not upgrade the septic, I got the health department on that house. Health department said, you must upgrade this septic. I had no money to upgrade the septic because that project itself, my friend gave me $70,000, but it went almost $60,000 over budget. Like, all of my cash and her cash is in this house.
Before the septic.
And I put it on the market, have the septic issue. Then I'm like, F all the things. I need to find an investor to buy this house from me because I can't fix the septic, and no regular person, no traditional buyer is going to buy this the way it is. So I had an investor come buy the house. I could not sell that house as a 4-bed, 2-bath, even though that's what it was because of the septic tank. I had to sell it as a 2-bed, 1-bath. So my ARV went from 750 to 600. And then to top it all off, the investor knows that, right? Like, I'm an investor. I know exactly what that dude is thinking. Like, freaking score. I am going to win on this property, right? He's got a fully rehabbed 4-bed, 2-bath that is functioning as a duplex. It's all done. He knew that. He knew that he was taking a risk with the septic tank. He just has to replace it. But then we ended up negotiating the price down from 600 to 560 with 10,000 in closing costs that I paid. And to top it, if you want to get all the numbers all roundabout in there, I bought that house at 485. So I'm 130,000 in rehab. I am $70,000 in debt to my friend. I have $60,000 of my own cash into the house. And I just kind of have to walk away from it. There has been lots of tears and lots of crazy, holy shit, in the last 4 months of going through that. Luckily, thank Lord that I walked away with that house between living there for a year and my down payment. I walked away with $61,000 cash, but I owe my friend 70. So I had to find 9 grand from somewhere else and pay her back because I'm like, I will drop dead before I lose somebody else's 70 grand. I'll lose my own, but I'm not losing hers. So I took the money, the extra money that I had in the bank account, gave it to her, and now I'm kind of like in shock/reset. Like, what do we do from here? All the money that I just worked for in this life I just created for myself in the last 2 years is now gone. So that's exactly where I am. Now I'm in rebuild mode. I'm in double prospecting mode. I'm in a new state on top of that. So let's add that in.
Wow.
And yes, so now all of my coaching clients know about septic tanks. They
Yeah.
also know about your ARVs changing drastically. They also know now, which I didn't know initially, that I could have sold that house with the septic tank issue as is off market and maybe gotten something higher than sitting on the market for 4 months and then getting red flagged by the city. But the city's there to make sure these houses are safe for the tenants and all of those things. So just a series of what I like to call unfortunate learning lessons.
Real quick, Smiley. So for those listening, ARV is after repair value. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So
All right.
I was doing all of this rehab on this house with comps is comparable houses that have sold in the market around that are set up exactly the same. One had just sold for $790 like a month before I was done with my project. So I was like, it's going to be an easy $750. That house wasn't on septic, so they didn't have all the issues. If I had connected the house to sewer, it would have cost me another $100,000. I would have had to break the dirt to the sidewalk, and also that area is not super. It was like single family homes, multifamily in the front, apartments on this side. It was kind of a mixed use older neighborhood, so the sidewalks and stuff weren't nice. So I knew if I connected to the sewer, not only would I have the $100,000 in sewer line, but then the city would probably have made me redo all the sidewalks going down that street, because that's what they do for development purposes when you switch over, because they're like, you're already digging here, fix this too.
Sabrina, when you're telling this story, I feel like sometimes people say something and you feel like the empathy because you feel like you've been through that. And Dre and I both are in real estate, and it was a couple years ago. I'm from Pittsburgh, but I'm here in Tampa, and I'm on this street in Tampa. I'm looking at the property with my buddy, and this is where I always say you want to talk to people. Just talk to people to get the experience. This is my first time hearing about the septic, but it's similar to the water. I talked to this guy who was a neighbor on the street, and I was like, this is a great deal. I'm going to buy it. And he's like, well, that house doesn't have city water. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, that house, all the other houses on the street have city water, but that one has its own little well water. And I'm like, well water? And then you start exploring about what that means by not being as part of the city. It would have been a nightmare, but once again, like once I had that particular information, I was able to calculate the numbers and say, well, this price doesn't justify all the changes. But if I would have bought it not knowing that it was on, like, why would this one house out of all the other 50 not be on the city water line? It's just something that you just don't think about it. And now I'm going to add to my list septic. Because it's just, and these are things I tell people with, like my buddy, I got a cousin, he owns like 50 houses in Pennsylvania. He's like, you just got to do deals, because by doing deals, you learn what you don't know, and you learn the questions to ask, and things that we have to worry about in Pittsburgh being a cold city versus Tampa is totally different. He's not worried about a hurricane, but he's worried about pipes bursting in the winter, so by doing deals, you just learn. And so I want to switch gears. I know we're going a little long, but you talked about coaching, and I follow you on Instagram, or at least I see your Instagram. Tell me this, with your coaching and your social media prevalence or predominance and pervasiveness, is your strategy you talked about Bigger Pockets, you talked about that, or this other podcast. What's on the horizon? To do more coaching, to do your own podcast, to do something to double dip, do your real estate, but then you get a project of you, we virtualize you, and now you get this other. Tell us about that, your coaching and your social media aspirations.
So I created a community on School. It's mainly focused around flipping. So I have like 10 or 12 hours of content walking through how to find the deal off market, what to do when you get the deal, the contracts, how to find a GC, how to budget a rehab, how to run comps. When you go to sell it, what do you do to the listing to make it sell quicker? I have a mini course on there on wholesaling, because as I've been flipping and then I get more opportunities, I can't take it down myself on the flip side, so I'll wholesale it. So I feel like those two go hand in hand, right? And then I'm working on a course right now that is about out-of-state investing, so that people that don't have a ton of money, if you are in one of the more expensive markets like Seattle, California, New York, that you can go out of state, like Ohio, Alabama, whatever, and buy a cash flowing property and build your rental portfolio that way. So that is already live, active, and ready. I would absolutely love to have more followers on social media because the more I have, then the more people can hear me ramble about the opportunity in real estate and also learn from my mistakes and don't repeat them, right? If I can save you from so many mistakes I've made, then you will be leaps and bounds in front of me and like you will be on the correct trajectory. You also have a little more confidence in knowing that I'm right there with you as you're going. I'm still building. So I'm not one of these like 100 million houses, Ferraris. I don't have that yet, but I'm getting there. So I know enough to be able to teach people that know nothing to hop on the bus, like, let's go. So that would be my ultimate goal, is to have more coaching clients and more doors. I would like 10 doors at some point. And I just got to rebuild to get there. So that's truly what I'm working for. That's why I do social media. A lot of times them informational videos, people think they're boring. So you got to sprinkle in, like I sprinkle in the gym and I sprinkle in stuff with my son. And then I have the like boring ARV is this, because that's how, it'll bring them in with the attention and then they'll learn something. So that's kind of what my game plan is for that.
I think that's just so phenomenal, because the one thing that that frustrates me is when I see these people on social media, the TikTokers or whatever, or even the Instagrammers, they always tell you about the good stuff. They never tell you about their mistakes. They never tell you about the shit. And I would love for someone to have a podcast. It's like, you know what? This is the upside. I mean, you can make millions. And even Robert Kiyosaki, he has over 15 million properties, I think he said, or some god-awful multi-million number. But no one tells you about the bad stuff. It's like, I was playing basketball. We talk about this, and people don't remember when I used to dunk on them. They just remember when...
Here we go, Sabrina.
They don't remember. They remember the one game they beat me, but they don't remember when I used to just dunk on them all the time. But I like it when real estate people or even professionals, entrepreneurs say, well, no, this is the stuff. This is the reality. Sometimes you have to make those prospecting calls and people don't return your calls, or sometimes you do the numbers and the numbers, you get into the game and the numbers don't work out because something that you didn't anticipate. And that what makes, I think, your content valuable is you get the real skinny about what's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But something else, a couple comments. One thing that stands out to me, Sabrina, is that as you shared that challenge there, like I don't know what I would have done. Obviously you can't give up. That's not an option, but I'm sure I would have, had a couple of aneurysms. I would have, pulled the hair out, what little hair I have. But in spite of that all, you have this positive energy. One thing that Smiley and I commented on is you appear to be like super happy, like just where. So this tells me that what you're doing is a passion. What you're doing is something you enjoy, and when that occurs, no matter how big the obstacle is, no matter how challenging it is, it's easier to push forward and manage around these, unforeseen, challenges. So that's one thing that comes to mind. Second thing is, here's a question, maybe a silly one. Actually, two questions. How did the health department find out?
Because when you list a property with septic, you have to have an RRS 22, I believe, done in Washington. That's legally what you have to do. So they came and dug and excavated, and the septic tank is a good septic tank. It's fine. It passed the test. But because I had listed the house as a 4-bed, 2-bath, then the health department was like, this septic tank is only graded for 2 beds, but you have it listed as 4. And on the Realist website, which is like county records, it was listed as 2. So they're like, what happened here? Red flag.
Dang, okay. Second question is, why didn't you just rent it out?
Because I had my private money in the house. So my mortgage from living there was almost $4,100. if I had stayed there and rented out the bottom, I could have rented the bottom for $2,000 and I would have alleviated my mortgage by that much. And it would work for me in that manner. If I were to put a tenant in there, the top unit would have been like 23-ish hundred, maybe bottom unit 2,000. So I would have cash flowed this much, but I also had $700 month payment to my friend from having the 70 grand trapped in the house. I also couldn't refinance the house because this is my first full year of being in real estate. I don't have tax record 2 years of profit as a solo real estate what do they call it?
Investor.
Yes, to refinance the house. So even though I make money on flips, and I have been all last year, I couldn't prove it, nor did I have enough record between solo real estate and having my 9 to 5 the year before. So kind of put myself in a corner. Like the only way that house would have worked if I was actually in it. Otherwise, I was running a risk. I've done Airbnb before. I could have Airbnb'd the top and bottom, but that's a business in itself that there is no stability in that. And who knows who's going to rent it. And I just, out of all the options I could have had, getting rid of it and taking the L was honestly like the biggest one. Because I wasn't there for when I moved to Arizona, I think it was like 4 or 5 months. So I was paying $4,000 a month just in mortgage in an empty house while I was trying to finish the project because I was like, I have to finish. I need to finish it to get the ARV that I need to then get all my money back out. But realistically, the way that it all ended, if I hadn't touched the basement, I probably could have sold that house for $560.
Wow. Lesson learned.
No good deed.
Yeah. No good deed. That's right. No good deed.
Just to add to your previous comment, the past, right now, I'm really happy because right now I've kind of like understood what happened. Instead of looking at it as a failure, I'm like, what did I learn? I learned this, and this. The entire time I was going through it, I was crying. I was losing my hair. I gained a bunch of weight. Like it was you see me now, but like if you had called me 4 months ago, I would have looked like,
okay?
Yeah, like what happened to her? Like
blink twice if you need help.
Yes, I would have been like, like that's it. I was going through it, and then I had the whole thing of like, I've had all of these wins in real estate. I'm teaching people. How dare I now teach people when I just took this fat L? Like I just took this giant L. I am no longer worthy of teaching people. And I went through that whole like almost like an identity,
doubting yourself.
Yeah, like a whole identity crisis. Like I'm supposed to be a flipper. Like I just got, it was bad. Like I just messed it up so bad. Like what do I do? So in the last December and 2 weeks of January we've been here, I've really been detaching. Like I am not my results. Like I am not this super successful identity persona. I don't have to be that. Like I'm okay just existing, whether I'm doing this or working at McDonald's. I'm alive. Like and I need to move forward. I've done it before. I could do it again. Like I just need to have self-worth outside of all of this, right? Everybody wants to count doors. I have 1,000 doors. I have this much cash flow. And until you lose it, like you don't realize how much your identity is tied up in that. And that was also kind of a lesson I learned in that was that is what I do. That is not who I am. Like, and that kind of helped me recover, I guess, as far as what you see, like being happy and like actually functioning again as a human, because it was not pretty the last 4 months. I can tell you that much.
One comment that I'm sending to Smiley. One comment is, there's a phrase that goes something like, "You're better than your worst experience," right? Or your worst. Oh no, this is it. Your worst experience does not define you.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what comes to mind when you say that.
No, when I think of it, I think of the athletes, and it's like the mere fact of being in the game Because if you get 10
Right.
10 home runs in the first 10 at bats, that bad one is going to come. I mean, and that's how you adjust. We used to say, or I used to say in sales when I was working at a different company, is you got your good salespeople, your okay salespeople, your good salespeople, your excellent salespeople. Well, your okay salespeople, it takes 30 days to get over a loss. Your good salespeople takes a week. An excellent salesperson takes 5 minutes. He does the lesson learned. He's up at it, and he's in there again. You know, and
Mhm.
so the way you handle defeat really helps your success. And that was a learning experience that when your son, if he decides to get into real estate, his mother's going to have a lot of experience that he will not encounter. He's going to have his own different ones, but once again, you'll be able to shield him from those. Mike
Mhm.
Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face.
Right.
I mean,
Well, everything changes after that.
exactly. He's sitting in the face. My plan is the best until you get hit in the face.
Right,
Yeah.
And
right,
we all gonna get hit in the face because we're
right,
getting in the
right.
ring and we're
Right.
just doing it. We're grinding it out. We're making it
Yeah.
better for the next generation. So
Right, right, right.
I commend you for that. I'm so happy you shared that story, and I'm so happy that
Yeah.
you're on the other side of that story. And we all will be aware of the septic tanks in the water in the city
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, and you'll probably see this if you haven't already, is that this is going to raise your stock, right? This is
Mhm.
going people are going to see, oh, she's been through it. Let me go ahead and learn more from her because she's actually been through it versus someone who has the theory of it all.
Right.
We're going to go to the final four here, but one quick question for those that are interested in learning from you, coaching. Talk to me about where do they find you? How for the coaching classes?
Uh,
What's the easiest way to
the
find
link for my school community is in the bio of my Instagram. I think it's
you?
on
Okay.
TikTok. It's basically everywhere. It's called Maples Academy. So even if you go to school.com, SKOOL, you can look it up that way. But I'm
Okay.
there. If you DM me, I'll send it to you. Like yeah, you can get it.
Okay.
And
We
how
will
long is the
also link
course?
to it in our show notes as well.
Is it
We'll link
12
to it.
hours, 6 hours, or let's say we went, is it a virtual you? Do they get so many live engagements with you, or is it all virtualized?
So I did a run of it. I've done 2, I guess, seasons of it. The first season was I did live courses with people. Like I was on Zoom explaining everything, telling the stories, giving them homework. And then as I was doing sales calls, I got a lot of people like, well, I can't do that at that time. Like, can you record it? So right now it's all recorded content. But within that, you also get Tuesday role play calls, which I'm live on. Tuesday night, we do accountability. So I have people in there. Some of them are focusing on wholesaling. Some of them are focusing on buying rentals. Some of them are new agents coming up. So they all have their own kind of sets of homework that I assign to them. And then on Friday morning, we do a Q&A call. So as they're prospecting, as they're encountering things, as they're doing whatever, their first project, they can bring their questions to me on the Q&A call, and then I'll answer them. So there's recorded educational content, and then there's me live 3 days a week, or 3 times a week, I should say.
Oh, that's amazing. Before we move into the final four, are there any questions we should have asked you that we didn't ask you, or something that you want to say before we move into the final four?
No,
No.
I wanted to say that story because I remember the last time I was on here, I was talking about like, I got 3 doors now because that house counted as 3 doors and la la la,
Yeah.
and life. And so I just wanted to get that one out, I guess. Yeah,
Well,
that
thanks for
was
sharing
really
that.
what I wanted to, yeah.
All right. Oh yeah.
The
So you see,
drummer has arrived.
the
Let's go.
build-up. So what would you say is the best advice you've ever received, and why?
Received a lot of advice. I don't know. I think the being consistent and just show up for yourself every single day is probably the best advice I ever gotten, and I should have been listening to it a lot sooner. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say that. And then obviously whatever you believe in your head you're capable of, you are. So if you don't think you are, you better start having new beliefs, because your own thoughts and your own self-doubt will stop you way more than any other person that you may be around.
I love that because that's something I share with my kids, in terms of when they're putting their foot forward to do something. I tell them, if you think you can't do it, don't waste your time. Just
Right.
stop, right? Your mind is your most powerful muscle, right? If you believe you can do it, knock it out. You may have to learn and, go through some obstacles, but you can do it. Here's the next question. What's the one thing most people don't know about you
That's
that you
that one
wish they did?
question that I was like, when I was reading it.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I feel like I don't talk about all of my trauma stuff, but I don't know if I
Yeah.
want people to know
Sure,
that.
sure. Yeah.
I love
You can make,
Stitch, but I feel like people know that. He's like
okay.
everywhere in my life. Um, what is one thing that they don't know that I want them to know?
It can be real estate related.
I truly care about people getting into real estate. Like I really, really do. I know there's a bunch of people out here that fake the funk and like they're like, look at my shiny this or look at this. Like the time freedom that real estate has given me is something that I push on everybody, which is could be part of I'm pushing them all. Like, do real estate, it's good for you. But even with this giant L I just took, like I still get to stay home with my son. I still get to homeschool him. He's never been to daycare. Like the time freedom that real estate gives you. Granted, there is a lot of work. There is a lot of prospecting. There is a lot of ups and downs that you do in real estate, but I control my time. I control whether I start prospecting now or in 2 hours. I control how many projects I take. I control how much money I make, because in real estate, your income is unlimited. Like, it doesn't matter what you think you can do. You can make millions of dollars in real estate. So there's so much potential there. And I feel like there's so many people who believe that they can't, or that it's like some impossible feat, or I need X amount of dollars to start. Like, I wish that they knew the potential. And I truly will tell you everything that I've been through in real estate, every lesson I've learned, every trick I also learn as I get mentored by more people. All my coaching clients, like every time I'm like, I went to this new thing, like this is what I learned. And I'll go through all the things I learned with them, because I want them to win and I want them to change their lives and I want them to have freedom too. So I know, I don't think that gets broadcasted on my social media as clearly as that, but I truly, truly wish that people would take more chances in real estate.
Love it.
Awesome. So here's one. What's the best compliment you've ever received that made you just all giddy inside?
They happen every once in a while, but it's usually in my moments of where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I on social media? Somebody will tell me, thank you for posting your content, whether it's the gym or it is real estate or just being a mom and existing. Thank you for posting it, because watching your stuff keeps me going, like keeps me having faith that this is possible. So that in itself, when they come, and it's rare and few in between, but I very much am like, okay, I'm ready for a couple more months of doing this. And then, I'll get a little like woozy and then it'll happen again. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready again. Like, let's go.
That is so applicable in the sense that every now and then someone will come on our podcast and we'll say, how did you find us? And they're like, oh, we saw you on LinkedIn, or they just saw it and they just said, we wanted to come and share our story. And that just that makes me like, my whole spirit just starts dancing, because someone listened to us. And one lady was in Bulgaria that was on our show. She just heard about us from over there. She's American, but she was working over there. And it popped up on her feed. And then she reached out to us. So we're like, wow. So those things are amazing. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Who is someone, Sabrina, that you would trade places with for a day?
See, this is a question I was like, how do I do this? Do I do it like I'm going to absorb all their real estate knowledge when I switch places with them? Like,
That makes sense.
or I just get to experience their life, like the bougie
That
side
works
of
too.
things. Like,
That works too. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I have spent so much time with Thatch. Like, I feel like I know what that life is like. Um, Granted, I've never lived in his shoes. Um,
But if you did, you could drive the Bentley.
right. One of the meetups he had, he brought his Rolls Royce. It was the white one. I don't think he
Yeah.
has it anymore. And
Okay.
I cried that day, like
Wow.
because he's like, I was still living in Arizona, visiting Washington. This was before I moved there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, since you flew out here, like, come on, we're gonna go to Beacon Hill. Everybody's gonna go see these properties I own. Get in the car. And I said,
This one?
that car? And he
The
said, yeah,
rolls?
get in. The rolls, yes. And I was like, I can't. I literally cried, and I was like, I never thought that my butt would be sitting in a
And the Rolls Royce.
$2,000 car. And I sat there in the back seat, kind of like this, like,
Don't want to touch
don't touch
anything.
anything, don't mess it up, because it was
Don't mess
also
it up.
white leather.
Oh
So I'm just like, oh my
no.
God, are my jeans gonna leave a mark
Right,
here? And I kind of
right,
just sat there like,
right.
and then we went to Beacon Hill, and then we got back in the car because I didn't have a car, and I went with my friend who's also a springboarder. And then I ended up getting to sit in the front seat. And if you know Thatch, he is a hood star at heart. So he's blaring some like Kendrick Lamar Humble
Okay,
in his
okay.
Rolls Royce with the
Okay.
thing down.
Yeah,
And I remember
yeah.
being like, I picked the right place. Like, I am living my
I've
best life.
arrived.
I have,
I've
yes, because
arrived.
I personally, like, I blare ghetto trash music all the time in
Yeah,
my car. Like,
right,
that's just how I
right.
roll. It makes me
Yeah,
happy. And then
yeah,
to be in this man's car, this $200,000 car, because
right.
my entire family used to be like, why you listen to that trash? Like, it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
loud. Like,
Right,
and
right.
then to be in his car and to like feel the experience full circle of like, he is authentically who he is. He's listening to this shit on the radio in his Rolls Royce, rolling down the street by his properties that he owns when he came here with nothing. And that was
Right.
the moment that I was like, this man did it. I 1000% can do it. And
Do it
he's
too.
not a, what would you say, hoarder of the good things, right? Like he brought the nice car out. Like one of the times he brought his Maybach, the Mercedes Maybach collab.
Yeah, yeah.
And I got to sit in that car too. And the same thing, like, oh my God. Like, I feel like there's something about you can dream of the thing, but when you touch it, it's like, oh, this can become real. Just an extra side tangent. I was able to buy a Range Rover. I wanted a Range Rover for 10, 12 years, like my entire life. And last year I was able to buy it for myself. And I think every vision board I ever made, every manifesting letter to myself, I'm like, I have a black Range Rover, blah, blah, blah. 10 years writing this in this letter. And it did not happen until the day that I went and test drove one. I was having a really shitty day. And my friend at the time was like, let's go to the dealership. I bet you driving that car will make you feel better. And I was like, I can't go to the dealership. Like, they're going to check my background. Like, I can't be there. Like, I can't do this. And he's like, they're not going to do any of that. They're going to let you drive the car. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm not wearing the right clothes. Like all of these, like, like self-worth, like, and I went to the dealership and the dude, I've been to Honda dealerships. I've been to all the other kinds of dealerships. This $120,000 car, I walked up to him in my very much this outfit and some dunks and was like, I want to test
waiting
drive.
for you. Is that what he said?
Basically, I was like, I want to test drive that Range Rover. Like, I've always wanted to drive one and I'm really looking now. Can I test it? And he's like, yeah, let me grab the keys.
Whoa. You're
And
like,
I said, "You
what?
don't want my license? Like, you don't want to look at my bank account? Like, what do
Right,
you?"
right, right.
And I went and I drove it, and I have a video of it, and I cried. I put
Mm.
Cardi B on the radio because
All
my
right.
trash
All
music,
right.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I
yeah.
blared it, and I drove the Range Rover, and I cried. And I swear to God, the moment I was able to touch that car and actually be like, "This is real. I can feel it. I can see it. I could touch it."
Yeah.
6 months later, I had mine,
Wow.
but I had wanted it for 10 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I am very much, actually today, after this, there's a bunch of open houses out here in Phoenix that are like $8-9 million houses that are open houses. I'm just going to walk in it just so I can experience that
Yeah.
kind of life. What does an 8,000 square foot house look like? I don't fucking know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
open that door of reality to myself, because I think the more doors you can open in that sense, the more things that you can make real to yourself, much like
Mhm.
my experience with Thatch will
Mhm.
unlock something in your head that you're like, I didn't know that I could do this. I didn't know I was capable of this. I didn't know I was worthy of being in this, like my butt in the Rolls Royce. Like,
Mhm.
I can't tell you any scientific anything behind it, but I can tell you specifically for my car, 10 years of thinking, I want this and I cannot have it. And the moment I actually decided, like, I can touch it, I can sit in it, I can have it, I can test drive it, nobody's kicking me off this lot, very shortly after I had it.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. That's
Yes,
it.
and if you need to
Yeah.
touch it, like there's nothing
Touch it.
wrong with having to physically go touch it. I seen some video before that this lady was talking about, I want a better life, so I'm going to start shopping at Whole Foods because people that make a lot of money go to Whole Foods. And I thought this woman was like crazy when I watched the video. Like, why would you do that? And then when you go into Whole Foods, there's like a little experience. Like, it's much different than the Dollar Tree or like, I don't know what other Alvi's or what's that other Aldi's? Yes.
Aldi's, yeah.
Yes.
Aldi's, yeah.
There's
yeah,
a very
yeah.
different experience. And once you start getting used to that experience, your body, this is a whole woo-woo side of things I love, but I'm a full believer. If you want something, go touch it. Go be in it. Go be near it. Like, part of moving to Washington was so that I could be near Thatch and be with the people that were doing the moves that I wanted to do. And naturally, you'll just do those things on top of learning and hard work. But
I think Warren Buffett said, if I meet 5 of your friends, I could tell a lot about you just from your friends. So he doesn't need to talk to you, but if I know your 5 of your friends, I can make a pretty accurate deduction about how you are. So, and that comes from where you shop, where you engage yourself, where you put your time. That tells it a lot about where you want to aspire and grow and be with. This has been so super amazing, Sabrina. I'm so glad we're kicking off our 2025 Thrive in 25 year with you. And thanks for coming
25,
back.
I like that. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's my theme.
You're ahead of us though, rolling in the range. You're ahead of us.
You guys just go test
We'll
drive
catch
whatever floats your boat and then go get it. My friend too, he wanted a Porsche and I told him, go test drive it, like go do it. And then the other thing he said he wanted was he wanted a pilot license. And shortly after I was like, you need to get in the plane. Like, you need to go touch it. You need to go experience it. Like, and he did. And then he signed up for his license. And I think he's already licensed now. And that's within the last 6 months of like, go touch it. Like, go do it. Go
Just
stick
do
yourself,
it.
yes, where you want to be. And it'll happen.
Big difference. Big difference.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing your experiences, your wisdom. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll add to that too, Sabrina, is I remember this from before, but it's even more so now. Your energy is infectious. I can imagine those that you coach leaving each coaching session feeling like, whoa, she knows what she's doing and she makes it sound so easy to attain. So your energy, I appreciate you being your authentic self and sharing your energy with us. And much continued success to you. And we look forward to having you back on the podcast.
Let's go. Yes. I'll be back at the end of the year. I'll have something else, something better. Let's go.
Yeah, for the next chapter.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.